Hello, Medfield families. My name is Steve Grenham, and I'm the proud principal of the Dale Street School. And along with my fellow elementary principals, Dr. Billsborough and Mrs. Caulfield, we are excited to extend a warm welcome to our third Student Support Series webinar, today focusing on the placement process. We understand the demands and the commitments that come with your busy schedules are really high, so we truly appreciate you taking the time to join us today. The webinar serves as an important opportunity for us to provide insights into our student placement process, ensuring transparency and clarity every step of the way. Whether you're a returning family or new to our school community, we are committed to guiding you through this journey and answering any of your questions. Please note that this webinar is being recorded to ensure that those who couldn't attend today have the chance to access the valuable information that we share today, and if anybody wants to review any of the information discussed today. So we have a quick slideshow that we'll go through the slideshow, and then at the end, we will take any questions that people have. So we will start with our agenda for this meeting. And as you're looking at the agenda, let me just pull it up here on my computer screen. We will start with the student placement process. We will talk about the parent narrative, which is a really important part of the process, and we'll leave time at the end for questions and answers. When the three principals sit down and talk about placement, which is, again, very, very important to us, we always have a jumping off point. And our goal, and the goal of the placement process for us and what we use as our beacon, is to develop heterogeneous classes at each grade level. The classrooms represent grouping across all ability levels, a relative equal number of boys and girls, and a balance of children with special interests and needs. And that's a quote from Carol Schraft that we had found a few years ago that really depicts the guiding light on how we want placement to go.
Hey everyone, so I'm hopeful that I can take you through the process and break down a little bit more specifically each aspect of that quote that Steve just shared. So our goal as principals and as teachers and as the entire staff actually is to develop groupings that will touch on at least 8 of these things that we have listed here. First one being a full range of aptitudes and abilities within each class, and trying to make those groupings as equal and as balanced as possible. And that is done, which I will get into a little bit more on the next slide, through a village approach. We look at the social emotional needs of our students. We look at their learning styles, as well as our teachers' teaching styles when we assign names to the groupings that are made as part of our placement process. We look at behavioral factors, and sorry that number 5 is out of order there. Apologize for that. We look at behavioral factors and making sure that we're looking at balanced classrooms from that lens. We look at the number of males and females that are in the group and try to balance them whenever possible. Sometimes our classes are unbalanced that way, but we do look at, when I say that, I mean overall from a grade level, might have more males and females one year or vice versa. So we try to look at that for our classrooms. We certainly look at balancing classes from the number of students that are in each group and trying to make that as equal as possible. We look at student health concerns. So perhaps a child may have a health concern that would benefit them for being closer to the nurse's office. So we look at that. We look at maybe some different accommodations that they might need from that lens. And then number 8, we always look at familiar faces, making sure that a child has at least one familiar face in their class moving forward. And that does not necessarily mean that that is their best friend. It could mean that it is someone that they were in a class with for the current school year, or perhaps a previous school year if it was a really good match. So we look at all of that information to try to make sure that there is at least that familiarity from a student moving on from one grade to another. So I referenced a little bit the village approach that we have. So as you can see here, when we are doing the placement process, we are really taking into account input from as many different stakeholders as possible. You'll see the classroom teachers are right up at the top there. They have spent 180 days with your child and know your child extremely well. So they are looking to place your child into a grouping, not necessarily with a specific teacher, because that is the job of Steve, Holly, and I. But they're looking to say, I know that this child is going to potentially work really well with this group of children, and looking at that balance. The special education department has a very big role. If your child is receiving special education services, they will be weighing in as to the grouping for your child. EL staff, if they're working with Mrs. Lozano, she has a big role in that as well. Our reading and math specialist, again, I feel like I'm a little bit redundant here, but everyone is taking a look at these groupings to make sure that we are developing the strongest grouping that we can for the next year's class. Our specialists, PE, art, health, music, librarians, they weigh in. We look at parental input, which we'll talk about in just a minute, in terms of any input that's provided from a parental input letter. And obviously, I mentioned the principals, our role is to take a look at those groupings as well, incorporate any feedback or consider the feedback that we have received from our staff as well as parents, and then assign a teacher name to the top of those groupings that we think will be a good fit for those kids for the upcoming school year. Holly,
Thanks, Missy.
Yep.
All right, there we go.
I think that's me, Holly, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's okay, no worries, thank you. So just, I referenced the parental input letter. So you are all going to have an opportunity, if you so choose, to develop a one-page narrative to provide us information that will help to assist us in that placement process. We read every single one of the letters that we do get, and that is why we're asking you to keep it to one page, because it helps us really focus in on the most important things that you want to share with us about your child to help really find a good fit for the upcoming school year. So on Monday, April 1st, so just in a few days, we are going to be sending out a letter to all families that will outline the requirements of the parental input letter that Holly's going to talk about in just a couple minutes, and will provide you with email addresses so that you can just email them to us. You don't need to send in a hard copy. You don't need to mail them to us. You can email them to us. But we do ask for some pretty specific information so that we can make sure that those letters get to us and get to us right into our inboxes where we need them to be. There'll be about 2 weeks for families to send us those letters. So again, the letter will go out to families on Monday, April 1st, and all letters must be received back to us by Friday, April 12th, which is the Friday right before spring break. And any letters that we receive after the 12th will not be considered in the placement process. We really are asking you, if you are, committed to writing a letter, that you do so within that time frame so that we can get our all of the papers organized and all the emails read and organized for the placement process, which will be coming up. We start working on that in early May. We definitely value the parental input. We consider it as to be one of the many pieces that I just outlined on that previous slide of the really important parts of the student placement process. You know your child best. So we really like to put, your knowledge from the home setting with our knowledge here from school and work to get the best placement for your child. Thanks, Holly.
Now it's my turn. So just a little bit about the parent narrative. So as Missy mentioned, we do really take parent input very seriously, and we really do want you to be part of the process. So things that you can include in your letter, and just as an aside, it is not necessary for you to write a letter if you it's not like a requirement, but if you feel that it is important for us to know, if there's things that you want us to know, these are some of the things you can include. So you could describe your child and who they are as a learner and what you see at home about their learning styles, specific types of learning environments that you feel are conducive to to your child's learning style. If you have experience with a prior teacher, for example, your older child had teacher X and they had a really amazing experience, please, you could note that in the letter. Or if your child had teacher X and it wasn't really a good fit and your next child has a similar profile, you can let us know that as well. There is absolutely no guarantee, though, that your child will or will not be placed with the same teacher as their siblings. It really is, there's so many other factors to contribute to placement that we can't guarantee that your child will be placed or not placed with a previous teacher. Um, Please inform us if your child should be separated from another child, if your child has had a specific social interaction that wasn't positive, or you might be neighbors with someone or cousins with someone. Let us know if there's a certain student that your child shouldn't be placed with, and include information regarding any health needs. As Missy mentioned, if your child may need to be closer to the nurse's office or may have some mobility issues that it makes it challenging for them to go up or downstairs. Those are all things that are really important for us to know. And then finally, as part of the Mass General Law, Section 90, if you have multiples, twins, or triplets, it is your choice to either keep them together or keep them separated. And, either way is fine with us. Just we need to know what your preference is on that if you have multiple children in the same grade. So this is what not to put in your letter. Please, please, please do not request a teacher by name. I heard on the soccer field that Mrs. X is really good and I want my child in that class. That letter will be immediately be discarded. We will not even entertain that idea. List a group of students that you would like your child to be placed with. That makes it really challenging, and we pretty much can guarantee that not all of those students will be listed on your child's class list. So, like a whole cohort or group of kids, it's challenging for us to place them all together. And use a teacher's name from which one does not have firsthand experience with. So again, if you request a teacher saying, I heard about so-and-so, my neighbor had so-and-so, that really is not firsthand experience. If you as a parent experienced it, that's a different scenario. So please refrain from doing that. And please try not to, or please do not request a conference with the building principal prior to handing in your parent narrative. We will read through the narrative actually multiple times. That narrative is really read through very, very carefully. And if we set up meetings with all of our incoming students or all of our students that we're trying to place, that is just unmanageable for a principal to meet with all the parents requesting meetings. So be specific in your letter if you choose to write one, but please don't request a meeting with the building principal. So here are some of the frequently asked questions. This is from our years and years of experience of doing this placement process. So first question, can my child be placed with his or her good friends? And children we make every effort to place them with a familiar face from their current class whenever possible. If there is a social emotional reason that your child requires placement with a specific child, please include that in your letter and we will do our best to adhere to that. Can I request a specific teacher? Absolutely not. There are so many factors that go into it. Please do not request a teacher by name. We can't stress that enough. Do we refer to we building principals refer to prior narratives? No, we do not save the narratives from last year, knowing that children grow in a year and lots of things change. Each year, the letters need to be rewritten if you so choose to, and we do not refer back to letters from the past. Do I have to write a narrative? Nope, it is not necessary to write a narrative. Your child will be placed with the same care and consideration with or without a parent letter. The next question is around emailing it, and that is how we would like to receive them. In the letter that we will be sending home to you, it gives very specific instructions on what to do, what to put in your subject line, how to send it, and just a reminder of the dates that we are accepting letters. The next question is who will see my letter? It is kept confidential as we can. We may need to share it if needed for certain circumstances, but we do try to keep it fairly confidential. And if a narrative is written, is it guaranteed? And all placement letters are read and carefully considered, but requests, we just cannot guarantee it because there's just so much that goes into the whole placement process. So if we really are hoping that you as parents and guardians of our students will trust the process. I think combined, Missy, Steve, and I have probably close to 100 years experience doing this. And we really do take it very seriously. And I think in my experience here in Medfield and in previous districts, we do a really nice job with class placement. But if you can trust the placement, we would certainly appreciate that. It is much more than just a numbers game. It's not like we throw cards up in the air and just divide it up into gender piles and put kids lists together. That's not it at all. We always have the student's best interest in mind. And there are situations that you might not be aware of, so that we only know about, and sometimes we can't even share that information with you. There might be a reason that we placed your child with a specific teacher in a specific class with a specific cohort. Just a reminder that neighbors and friends don't always make the best classmates, that sometimes students will take some of their social behaviors that they do outside of school and bring them into the classroom, which doesn't always make for an optimal learning environment. Don't believe everything you hear. I often say to, parents, I'll believe half of what the kids tell me happen in your home if you believe half of what you hear happens in our school. So teachers might not have had a good experience with a friend or neighbor of yours, and you hear that teacher is awful or doesn't do well with certain students. Each child is different and everyone's experience is different. So please don't believe everything you hear, because for every negative comment you hear, I'm sure you can find plenty more positive comments about a teaching style. Your child may look very different at school than they do at home. I often even find that with my own kids. When I go to conferences and they're talking about my kids, I'm thinking, that's not what I see at home. So just know that when we're placing your child, we might see a very different child at school than you do at home. There are certain reasons for placement that may be unavoidable, and again, some may be able to we may be able to share with you, and others we just can't for confidentiality purposes, and also too, it's just part of what the process is. And just recognize that students change and grow each year, and that's the reason we're asking for placement letters, and we do take into consideration that even over the summer we see different kids than when they left in the spring. So if you could please just trust the process, we can assure you that we will take it very, very seriously.
Thanks, Holly. On June 12th this year, students will experience a transition day. This is an exciting event designed to prepare them for the upcoming school year. Students will learn their new teacher's name for the following year during the morning hours. This will be the first time that students or families learn this information. At some point in the morning of the 12th, students will proceed to transition to their next year's teacher. Some students, depending on grade level, will just move in their current building to their new classroom. For other students, those transitioning to a new school, that involves boarding a bus accompanied by school personnel. These students will travel to their new school and they'll meet their new teacher for the following year. This part for both kids that are staying in the building or going to a new building provides them the opportunity to become acquainted with the new building, the new surroundings, and often eases their mind in apprehensions about going to a new grade level. Overall, Transition Day serves as an important step in preparing our students for the next year. It fosters a smooth transition between grade levels and/or schools, and it ensures they feel comfortable and confident as they start on a new journey the following year. So we're excited about Transition Day. Again, with the snow day, it has moved up now one day, with the 13th being our last day. Transition Day is usually the day before school ends, so it will be on June 12th at this time. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have. I will say that we did open up a Google form for a few weeks. We didn't have any questions on that Google form. but we are here now, and I know you people, we have a good amount of people that are on. So we're going to give a few minutes in the Q&A. If you'd like to type in any questions, we'd love to hear them, love to try to answer or clarify where you have made the time to come out today. We'd love to try to answer any questions you may have.
So it looks like there's a question around, when transitioning to a new building, does the current principal or the receiving principal place the teacher name on the class groupings? And that's a really good question. It actually is a combination. Both Dr. Billsborough and I meet, and Mr. Grenham and I meet. I'm sort of the middle child here, but we work together collaboratively to look at class lists, talk about teaching styles, and together we put the teacher names on the groupings. The ultimate decision is that of the receiving principal, but I would say we do collaborate very, very closely and carefully on placing teacher names at the top of the lists.
So the next question that we have is, if you don't know a teacher in the incoming grade, but your child has thrived with a teacher in the past, could we mention that there was success with a specific teacher name in the past? Absolutely. That's a great question. I think that helps us kind of know what the teaching style of that teacher is and try to find a similar fit in the new grade level.
And Missy, can I jump in on that? I think that was answered beautifully. And also, if they're going in between buildings, if you could also maybe talk about what the benefits of that teacher was, that would also be helpful for, like, for instance, if it's Holly getting a Memorial student or myself getting a Wheelock student, we may know the teaching style somewhat of that teacher from Wheelock or Memorial in Holly's case. But if you could also add that in, that would also be another way that we could find out that they thrived in Dr. Billsborough's class because she did X, Y, and Z. So that would be helpful as well.
I think the next one's for you, Missy.
Yep, I'll take that one. So for new kindergartners, will they learn their teacher on transition day? If not, when should we do a placement letter for them? Great question. So this process looks slightly different for our incoming kindergartners. Yes, absolutely. You can certainly write a placement letter. That's actually really beneficial for us, since unless your child is already here at Memorial in the preschool, we don't obviously know them yet. So that is really helpful in terms of getting some information. What we do for our kindergartners is we actually have a meet and greet day in the fall. So you will receive an email on the last day of school, which is currently set for the 13th, right? 13th. So on the last day of school, we will send an email out to all of our incoming kindergarten families to let them know your new child's teacher. What we have done in the past is offer an opportunity for our incoming kindergarten students to make a short little video just introducing themselves that sits on we've used Flip in the past. I'm not quite sure what we're going to use this year, but it allows our students who, for many of them, it's their first exposure to Memorial School, to be able to put a name and a face with their teacher, with some of their classmates, with the principal, with a few other people, so that they will know, at least a face or two when they're walking in the fall. And then, like I said, we do usually have a meet and greet day on one of the first 2 days back for teachers in the fall. So we're working on the schedules for that day, and more information will come out with specifics in the summertime. But that's just, that's how we do our process for our incoming kindergartners.
We have another question up. How do you consider the preschool feedback, parentheses, outside Memorial, on teaching styles that may or may not work with them? Do you still work to align familiar faces for them as well?
So that's a great question as well. I'll take that one. Yes, we do consider the preschool feedback. So whether it's from a parental narrative or information that comes from our preschools in the form of our progress reports. So we do take a look at all of that information. Again, we try to make the best balance groupings that we can. It is definitely a little bit more challenging for our incoming kindergartners because we really don't have the experience of 180 days with them. And then what we will do, that last part of the question is, in terms of a familiar face, I do try to place them whenever possible with at least one person who attended their same preschool. Again, I don't always have all of the information if we have a ton of children coming from one preschool, whether they might have been in the same class. So that is certainly something on the parental narrative that you can share. If there's a few kids that you think that they might work well with, give me a few names and I will try my best to place them with at least one of those students so they will have a familiar face. Hope that answers that question. If not, pop something else into the chat. And if I can, I'm just actually going to just add one more thing about our incoming kindergartners. I will be sending a separate letter to our incoming kindergarten families outlining the process specifically for incoming kindergarten because it does look a little bit different from our current pre-K or current K to 5 students.
It looks like we had some really great questions today. If after the webinar is over, something pops into your head or you think of a question that you didn't have an opportunity to ask, certainly reach out to any of us. Looks like one more came up. Will there be an intro day for kids to bring items to their new classroom before the year starts? That was what we did actually during like post-COVID, but no, students will bring their items to school on the first day of school. There won't be like a meet and greet at the end of the summer. The meet and greet will happen more on the other end at the end of the school year. If your child has an exorbitant amount of belongings that need to be brought to school, you certainly can drop them by at the end of the summer, or if you have supplies that you want to donate to the class, we're open to that, but there won't be the more formal meet and greet that we had in years past because we've now replaced it with the end of the year move up. But again, if you have any questions, I'm sure I can speak for Missy and Steve in that we do want to make this transition as smooth as possible. We recognize that it can be anxiety producing, and sending your kids to the next school. You get used to a school for 2 years and then we have a transition here in Medfield, but we really do work very hard to making transitions very smooth, and class placement is taken very seriously here in this district. And with your support, I'm sure that we can continue to do that for the upcoming 24-25 school year. And with that, we'd like to thank you so much for coming this afternoon. We know everyone's schedule is very busy. We will, as Steve mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, this is being filmed and it will be placed onto YouTube for people to view. So if you want to share that information with any of your friends or neighbors that you think might benefit from hearing this information, we would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.